Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 801B, and today's date is October 26, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. is losing control in the Middle East as more countries turn towards Russia. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. For those people who don't know, I do have a new website called newssentinel.com. That is NEWZSENTINEL.com. And what this site is we're gathering all the news stories and videos from around the world and bringing it to one location. And we are streaming all of this information into this one site. We have about 260 streams right now. And what we are doing right now is bringing in the news that is separate and apart from the corporate media. The site is completely free. There is no charge to read the news or anything like that. So if you haven't visited the site, you can come over and take a look at it. And if you're having a tough time getting to the site, you can come right over to the X22Report.com site. Scroll down a little bit. You'll see it right in the middle of the page. It says newssentinel.com. Just click on the streaming alternative media. It'll bring you right over to the site, or pick any one of the news stories that is there. It'll bring you right over to the site, and you can see how the site works. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Obama has, since 2008, has been pushing Obamacare, telling us how affordable it's going to be, how great it's going to be, and we come to find out that it's none of these things. First of all, it's not affordable whatsoever. What we're seeing is Obamacare premiums are going to rise in 2016, and rates are definitely going up in many parts of the country, and what we're seeing is more and more people are going to be paying a lot more money for their health insurance. And if we really look at Obamacare, what they're really doing is they are intertwining taxes into Obamacare to bring in revenue. They made a deal with the insurance companies where they will profit greatly from Obamacare, and they put penalties on those people who are not going out and purchasing Obamacare. And of course, this is completely unconstitutional. And if it was so great, you wouldn't have to force people into it. And if it was so great, all our government employees who voted for it would have given up their health insurance and gone right for Obamacare. But guess what? They didn't do it. And this tells you right now that this is not good. And what we're seeing right now is premiums are continually going up, and the load is coming off of corporations and being put on employees, because what's happening with the mandate is that corporations will not have to provide health insurance. A lot of it is being offloaded to the employee. And again, we have to remember what the government is doing right now, while it's intertwined with corporations. Every law that they're passing is not a benefit to the people. It is always a benefit now to the corporations, to the central bankers. And we are definitely seeing this. And this is what you see in fascism. Now, we understand that the U.S. government is spying on everyone, trying to gather as much information as possible. And we see that the Russian minister, the Russian communication minister, is saying that the reason why the NSA right now can spy on everyone, it's because the internet is controlled by a few major U.S. companies, and it gives them full access to the internet, and they have the ability to spy. Snowden's disclosure showed exactly the harmfulness of the monopoly, because it would not be possible if the world IT sector should be structured in a more balanced way. And we see that Russia, the BRIC nations, are saying this can't be the way it is anymore. We need to basically diversify it and break it apart across the world. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, why should there be 6 companies that handle and control the corporate media? Why should there be a handful of companies that control the internet? It shouldn't be, because true competition, and for the truth to get out there, you need to have everything diversified where you don't have one entity in control of everything, because when you have that, it's more like a dictatorship. when you have many pieces, guess what? It makes it more difficult to control what is going on. And was supposed to be the answer here in the United States, where the 50 states were in control and the government took orders from the people, from the states, and they just basically were supposed to be the secretaries of the people. But it looks like things got switched around and the states are not in that position to say, listen, you don't control us, we control you. And we need each state in the union to step up and say, you know something, this has gone far enough. The federal government is not supposed to be the all power of power here in the United States calling the shots. The people call the shots. The states call the shots. This is why the federal government just can't willy-nilly change the Constitution. This is why they need the states to do this. Because believe me, if they had the ability to change it, they would have changed it a long time ago. Now, Russia is saying that they are ready to join the Nicaraguan canal construction. And we can see right now China is the leader in this. And this is going to rival the Panama Canal. And they're pouring huge sums of money into this, about $50 billion. And they're trying to get this completed. And Russia says they are ready to join this effort. And we can see why they're doing it, because this will be able to handle bigger ships. China, Russia will control it. And they will not need to use the Panama Canal anymore. Now, out in North Korea, we're getting reports from The Intercept where they say that Kay Harriman was a Colorado-based founder of a multi-million-dollar humanitarian movement and non-governmental organization called the Humanitarian International Services Group. Now, Kay was really a Pentagon spy. And Kay ran the non-governmental organization, which was funded by the United States through a highly classified Defense Department program. And The Intercept got the report, got the information, and they're saying that the group operated under a secret Defense Department program that began in December 2004 and lasted through most of President Obama's first term. The program was the brainchild of senior Defense Department intelligence official of the Bush administration, Lieutenant General William Jerry Boykin. North Korea was the most difficult intelligence target for the United States, but Harriman's NGO, by offering humanitarian aid to the country's desperate population, was able to go where others could not, The Intercept said. It is unacceptable that the Pentagon or any other U.S. agency use nonprofits for intelligence gathering. It is a violation of the basic trust between the U.S. government and its civic sector. A former U.S. military official speaking on condition of anonymity said that the Defense Department provided at least $15 million to HISG over the course of the program through these revenue streams. So we can see right now the United States uses the NGOs, which we've seen in Ukraine, which we've seen throughout the Middle East, and we see in North Korea, to spy and to stir up revolutions. And they pay them very, very well. Now we know the United States government central bankers are trying to provoke war around the world to cover up this entire collapse. And right now, the U.S. Navy plans to send the USS Lassen destroyer within 12 nautical miles of the artificial islands built in China. So they're going to be sending these ships within the next 24 hours. And they're going to go around the Spratly archipelago. The ship might be accompanied by a U.S. Navy P-8A surveillance plane and possibly a P-3 surveillance plane, which has been conducting surveillance around the region area. And they're doing this to provoke China into doing something. Now, do I think China's going to do something? No, I think they're just going to sit back. The U.S. is just going to take their ships, bring it around the area a couple of times to see if something would happen. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping China is smart enough not to do something. Now, the refugee problem in the Middle East is getting worse. Refugees are flowing up through Europe. Millions upon millions of people are looking for a home right now. And we know most of these people are not from Syria. A lot of the countries are saying, yeah, these people are not from Syria. They're from other areas like Libya, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq. And we know this is part of the United States plan to basically force Europe into saying, yes, we need to get rid of Assad because, look, we're having a refugee crisis in Syria. But that's not the case whatsoever. But what's very interesting, you can see these refugees because a drone captured thousands of refugees that are marching in Slovenia. And if you come to the X22Report.com site, you can see the video. On YouTube, you can see the video there. Now, a couple reports back, the corporate media was out there saying the situation in Syria is getting worse. Russia's bringing in troops. They're bringing in their aircraft carrier. They're going to bring it right near Syria. The situation is getting worse and worse. But as I reported, the Russian media said that no, their aircraft carrier is going to the Barren Sea. And now we have reports that, yes, this is exactly where the aircraft carrier had gone. And they are conducting operations in that area. They're conducting drills in that area. And they are nowhere near Syria whatsoever. Now, it looks like the situation in the Middle East is getting worse by the day here, especially for the United States government central bankers. Right now, what we're seeing is that Russia is being asked by more and more Middle Eastern countries to help them with the proxy army of the United States. And what I'm talking about is the Islamic State and other terrorist organizations. We have Iraq, who's getting the green light for Russia to come in. We have Afghanistan is requesting military assistance from Moscow because they're saying NATO and the United States, they are worthless there. Well, of course they are. They're growing poppies. They're not worried about the terrorist organizations. They want the confusion there because this is where they can grow the poppies, where they can use it to sell opium and pay for their covert operations. And we see now that other countries are looking towards Russia instead of the United States because they're taking care of business. And this is a huge problem for the United States at this point. Assad is saying that he wants Russian companies, to work in Syria to help restore the country, to set up shop, to help build the oil sector. And this is going to be a huge problem. Like I said, Russia and Syria have an alliance, an economic alliance, a military alliance. And now they're going to be bringing in corporations to help. Because what's happening here is Russia is pushing back the Islamic State, getting rid of the terrorism inside the country, and going to make the country peaceful once again. This is their goal. Their goal is not to overthrow a government, but to keep that government intact and let the people decide on what they're going to do. Now, of course, the United States government central bankers are out there saying that Russia is targeting our forces. Our guys are fighting for their lives down there. Moscow is deliberately targeting U.S.-backed forces in Syria as part of a military campaign. Well, the our guys category not only includes the moderate terrorists, and if you notice the word terrorists, which was trained by the United States, it also includes the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist organizations. So for the United States to come out there and scream about this is absolutely ridiculous. Because we need to remember, the United States is paying for all this, is paying paid mercenaries, is paying and supplying weapons to overthrow a government. And this really constitutes an undeclared act of war against a sovereign country in violation of international law. Think about it. The United States is paying an armed force to go invade a country and overthrow a government. I mean, isn't this what Germany did in World War II? But it was their own forces? What's the difference at this point? Paid forces to go into Libya, to go into Yemen, or use proxy armies to do their bidding. It's the same thing. We see the Syrian army are making huge gains in Aleppo, in Damascus, and Latakia. They are pushing the terrorists out and taking back control. Now, Russia wants to take into account only the interests of Syria. They're not discussing Assad whatsoever. What their goal is to get rid of the terrorism and have a peaceful Syria and let the people decide the course of Syria. Now, of course, the United States government central bankers do not want this. Russia has even extended a hand to the Free Syrian Army. Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov announced that they are willing to provide military aid to the rebel Free Syrian Army, a group which has been getting aid from the U.S. for years. Lavrov also offered air support for their anti-ISIS operations. But guess what? The Free Syrian Army said, no. We don't need your help. We don't trust the Russians. We are listening to the United States. We are doing what we need to do, and our mission is to get rid of Assad. Period. So we can see right now that the Free Syrian Army has no interest in the Islamic State because they're actually fighting together. They're all one and the same. And what we're seeing is that Russia is trying to show the world that, look, they don't want to fight against the Islamic State. They don't want to fight against terrorism. Their mission is to get Assad. Their mission is to fight alongside the Islamic State. And we see the United States is out there. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter is saying that Americans can expect more raids on the Islamic State strongholds. Now, what I think is happening at this point is that things are falling apart rapidly in Iraq, in Syria, and the U.S. forces are going in and gathering the intelligence in the Islamic State bases, so it doesn't fall into the hands of the Syrian army and in the hands of Russia. Because if it does, this would be a huge, huge blow, because I'm sure there's damaging evidence that could be printed and sent all over the place around the world to show that, yes, look, the U.S. has been supporting the Islamic State. And we see that all these different missions that they have planned to go into the Islamic State is happening at the same time that Russia is destroying the proxy army and pushing them back, where Iraq is asking Russia to come in and help out. Afghanistan is asking for help. Looks like they're cleaning house at this point. Now, the U.S. is very worried about Russian subs near undersea cables. Now, why are they so worried about this? And why would they ever think that Russia was just going to start cutting communication cables? Well, they could be setting up a complete false flag here. The U.S. military and the intelligence officials are worried that Russian submarines and spy ships operating around the undersea global communication cables is going to be a huge problem. The report added that there was no concrete evidence, of course, supporting these concerns, but the reason why they're so concerned about it is that the U.S. economy and military depend on these cables. They carry global business worth more than $10 trillion a day and more than 95% of daily communications. So what are they worried about? They're worried about if these cables are cut, guess what happens? The economy collapses. So think about this for a second. They're telling us, and they're letting it seep out, that Russia and their subs and their spy ships might cut these cables to destroy the economy and to knock out communications. Of course, what is the motive of Russia to do this? There is no motive. Is there any evidence? No. They're just feeding this information to make you aware. Why? Because they're planning a false flag. Just like Cyber 911, Cyber Pearl Harbor, Lone Wolf attacks. They're building all of this up for the big false flag. Because you have to remember something very important. They need this to be blamed on another country or another group. Now, if these cables go down, they don't have to be cut. They could just say they went down. Do they have to prove it? No, not really. They can say all communication stopped. Business came to a screeching halt, just like a cyber attack. And it's the perfect plan to say we are under attack. So we're starting to see a lot more information come out on what they are definitely planning. And it all leads back to the same thing. Destroy the economy and make it look like another country or group has done this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.